Each iteration of Star Wars, whether it's in the movies or the TV shows, introduces its own theories. And I think fans are really leaning into this when it comes to Ahsoka. And now there's a theory that could mean something huge for the show. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. Something I've been really enjoying about the Ahsoka show is the variety of theories. Is Merrick actually Kanan? Is it Ezra? Is it some random character? Is it actually Jar Jar Binks in disguise? This is what's really special about Star Wars when it comes down to it. Ever since the beginning, who is Darth Vader? All of these theories are around, and it's part of the fun. On a side tangent, I really hate when people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe your theory was wrong, or blah blah blah, it's so dumb to make theories. It's just a show. It's fun. My theory on Merrick was wrong, but I still enjoyed the reveal. I'm not going to poo-poo the show just because my theory was wrong. I had a blast making those videos and discussing and theorizing. It's a fun time. But now, let's jump into what the heck is going on with this Anakin, Ahsoka, Darth Vader theory. If you're not aware, spoilers for episode 4 of Ahsoka. Get on it. It's a great episode. It's one of my favorites ever made in a Star Wars show. Not to the level of Andor, but it's freaking up there. Now that people are going to watch episode 4 of Ahsoka, let's get into the details with this theory. For those of you that don't know, some fans picked up on a small detail that may or may not be true. We're going to get into it. But they noticed that there's something really interesting when you look at Anakin in this episode. It's not that, hey, he actually looks pretty young in this, which I really appreciated the level of touch-ups that they did on this one, instead of like Obi Wan where they just make him look really old still. Honestly, older than he is. But fans noticed that his lightsaber might be the lightsaber of Darth Vader. Now I'm going to tackle this video in a few different ways, in 3 key ways. 1, I'm going to talk about what this means for the character if it is Darth Vader. 2, I'm going to talk about this if it's not Darth Vader. And 3, I'm going to talk about the actual credence of this theory. I've dug deep, I've done some research, and I found something interesting. So that's how we're going to break down this video. What could this mean for Ahsoka? Why would Anakin show up in the world between worlds but end up becoming Darth Vader? I think it's pretty clear. Ahsoka is obviously dealing with a lot of the trauma around Anakin as her master. As we see in that episode, Baylan is digging right into her insecurities, and I think my read of this is that Baylan has a special ability in the Force that he can read people, deep understandings of the trauma and the insecurities that people are facing, and I think that's what he's pulling on when he's talking about all of these things. Ahsoka is dealing with this trauma, and the world between worlds is very much tied to Ahsoka. I mean, the reason that she is alive still is the world between worlds. And while the world between worlds can be debated, it's not for this episode in terms of like what it actually does and that kind of thing. But I think it's clear that the world between worlds is very deeply tied to Ahsoka, and possibly Ahsoka's mental state, and shows her what she needs to see. When Ezra finds the world between worlds and is trying to hide it from Palpatine, he ends up saving Ahsoka. And that was what Ahsoka needed at the time to survive that fight with Vader. But why does she need Vader? Why can't it just be Anakin Skywalker in that moment? But I think it can be Anakin, and we're going to get to this in part 2. But what about Vader? I think Vader is an even starker contrast, and maybe it's not the good part of the world between worlds. The world between worlds is neither good nor evil. It is happening everywhere, and it's happening nowhere. So it could just as easily bring forth Darth Vader instead of Anakin, or have Anakin turn into Darth Vader in front of Ahsoka to really help her face that side of her. Because it's clear, she is not facing any of the things that she is struggling with. She is trying to train Sabine while being lacking herself, and that is not a good way to do that. As we see in episode 4 of Ahsoka, But why Darth Vader? Why should she see Darth Vader, and how would that actually impact her? Well, as we see, she still has not dealt with that side of Anakin's pathway, or the fear that she could fall into that side of things. Does she know if Darth Vader was redeemed at the end of the war? Does she understand the journey that he went through to get there? We don't know. We're not entirely sure if she understands that side of Vader. So she could just see Anakin Skywalker turns into Vader. And I don't think whether or not she knows that Vader was redeemed or not is important to her arc. I think it's interesting to think about. So everything in the World Between Worlds is going to be in an effort to help Ahsoka overcome those demons inside of her. But how about if this isn't Vader and it's actually just Anakin? Well, I think that's just as powerful. I don't think we need to exclusively see the negative sides for Ahsoka to grow as a character. I think it can be seeing Anakin and understanding his flaws, but also understanding that, hey, even though he went to the dark side, even though he failed as a Jedi, it's not because of Ahsoka. And it's not because he was a bad person even. That's something that was part of his fall, was him becoming a bad person. It wasn't because he was a bad person. And I think that's what Ahsoka needs, especially when it comes to training Sabine. Sabine is a very sensitive person and character and is highly creative and wants to express that creativity. And Ahsoka, even though that was her younger, has kind of hidden that part of her. So I think this is the kind of thing that she needs to understand and needs to wield to best train Sabine, as well as to best move forward as herself and to ultimately bring down Thrawn. Now, what have I found when it comes to this whole theory? Is this actually Darth Vader? Is this only Anakin? According to some digging that I did find a tweet from the Star Wars Academy that broke some things down, and their theory is that it's not actually Darth Vader's lightsaber, but it is Anakin's lightsaber that is just reflecting the darkness around it. And while looking at the side-by-side here, I do understand the reflection, but I'm not entirely buying it because while the designs are very similar, there is a level of darkness that is very clear with Vader's saber. And if you look closely, if you look at Anakin's lightsaber or at Vader's lightsaber, the shininess isn't pure shiny. It's not going to reflect so deeply as you see it in this side by side here. If you look at that clip in particular, if you go back and watch it, and I've done a few times here, and you can't quite tell, obviously, which is why it's such a debate right now, and it's a really fun theorizing, but apparently it's supposed to get really intense next episode, so who knows? But if you look at the side by sides here, there is a shiny part here, and it is not reflecting the darkness, and it is in a space that should reflect the darkness. But that's what leads me personally to think, oh, there's a high likelihood that it could be Vader. I think that's exciting. I think it would be really fascinating to see that side of things, but I'm also down for more Hayden, so could be Anakin as well. Let me know your thoughts, especially with the side-by-side, whether or not you think this has any credence to it, and what do you think about my theorizing and breakdown why it could work either way? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, check out our podcast. May the Force be with you.